Hello and welcome to CadenCenter. It's time for another This Week in Sports. Today I'll be talking about the Super Bowl 57 that just wrapped up, where the Chiefs defeated the Eagles and solidified their dynasty, as well as the absolute chaos that was the NBA trade deadline that completely shifted the power dynamic in the league. But we will start with the Super Bowl that just wrapped up. Like I said, the Chiefs defeated the Eagles 38-35 on a last-second field goal by Harrison Butker. Patrick Mahomes won MVP. And before I break down the game, I do have to also give a shout out to Juju Smith-Schuster, a former CadenCenter interview. I interviewed him when he was at USC, and it's great to see him get a Super Bowl ring and have the successful NFL career that he is having. But to break down the game, it all started in the first half, really, when the Eagles controlled the game and looked like they might win it. They dominated possession by double-digit minutes. Jalen Hurts was running through the Chiefs' defense. He was finding Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. But the one play that kind of kept the Chiefs in the game was the scoop and score off of the Jalen Hurts fumble off of the design QB run. And that's what happens sometimes when you run the ball a lot. You may fumble, especially with your quarterback. Jalen Hurts, at the end of the day, just bobbled the snap. Chiefs took it back, and that's what really kept them in. I think if that didn't happen and the Eagles score on that possession, we maybe don't see the Chiefs comeback that I'm about to talk about. And we really didn't expect to see it after Patrick Mahomes seemed to re-aggravate his ankle right before halftime. He limped to the bench. He seemed to be a little tight while walking around to the locker room at halftime, and things looked bleak for the Chiefs. But after Rihanna's halftime performance, the Chiefs really seemed to take control somewhat in the second half. But there was one big swing that you can accredit, other than the late game penalty that I'm going to talk about later, as the reason the Chiefs are champions. That was after Kadarius Toney touchdown. He was wide open, pass from Mahomes. The Chiefs got a stop. They forced the Eagles to punt, and Toney made the longest punt return in Super Bowl history, brought it down to within the 5, and from there, the Chiefs, they don't miss in the red zone. They found Sky Moore for another wide open touchdown, and I mean wide open. These two plays were surprising given the Eagles' defensive reputation of being this lockdown type defense. So it was surprising to see the Chiefs just roll through them in the second half. They actually scored on every drive they had. So it proved that sometimes defense doesn't win championships when you got a generational quarterback like Mahomes, maybe. But one thing for the Eagles, I don't really want to say they lost this game or anything, because they really didn't. They played well. Ultimately, they just lost to a dynasty. But they did seem to go away from running with Jalen Hurts more in the second half. I know he got that third touchdown, which was another Super Bowl record, most rushing touchdowns by a QB in the game. But I feel like it's worked for them all season. It's a big reason that they got in here, the RPOs. So for them to go away from it a bit surprising. Again, I wouldn't say they lost the game by any means. They still had a chance to win it, but it's certainly surprising somewhat to see them go away from it. And now it's a big question of who can stop the Chiefs. In the AFC, you do have the Bills, you have the Bengals, you have the Jaguars, the Chargers, so many young quarterbacks and young teams looking to take down Mahomes, who's also pretty young himself. Whether that can happen, I don't know. Out of the NFC, other than the 49ers, this year at least, I didn't really see a team that could possibly compete and stop the Chiefs enough. I know there was all this hype about the Eagles. I know Hurts was 16-1 this season. Defense is great, but they really never won a big time game in the regular season. They had a really relatively weak schedule, and the teams they did beat that necessarily had a good record, notorious chokers like the Cowboys, and then you get a playoff path of the Giants with Daniel Jones and the Niners 4th-string quarterback. So I don't know if they can come back if they have a rematch next year in the Super Bowl and beat them, or if the Eagles even make it that far. But for now, the Chiefs are the champions, and it'll be interesting to see who can stop them, if anybody, because, hey, maybe they're the next Patriots. But now we move on to the NBA trade deadline that just wrapped up this past week. And man, this was wild. We expected some trades, some players to move, but we really got the big Woj bomb, if you will, of the deadline when we found out late at night, about 11 o'clock, like 2 Eastern time, where the Nets were making the deal, that Kevin Durant was becoming a Phoenix Sun, him and TJ Warren, for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, 4 first-round picks, and a pick swap. And there were a lot of KD rumors to the Suns over the offseason, but after, KD signed his extension, he had already gone through so much chaos. I thought he seemed content with staying with Brooklyn for at least the rest of the season. They were the 4 seed. Maybe they can win a playoff series or two, given the newfound depth they had found after trading Kyrie Irving. I'll talk about that trade later. But clearly, KD wanted to go to another super team like he loves to do. He forms it with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. And I think the Suns should be, for now, maybe the favorites, but there's a big asterisk next to that because Chris Paul, hasn't shown he can put the ball in the hoop. He may be, dishing out 14 assists every other night, but he's certainly not the same his same self. Devin Booker just came back from an injury. Whether that'll linger is a question, and KD is obviously injured and will come back from it. So there is some injury risk. And DeAndre Ayton is also just a guy that he's not going to like being the fourth option. He already wanted to leave because he was the third option. He tried to go to Indiana. Phoenix matched the offer. I thought he would be sent to Brooklyn if they got KD, but somehow they were able to keep him. I'm sure those first-round picks helped that case. So it'll be interesting. I think the Suns will be a fun-to-watch team both on and off the court. And it also obviously puts the Nets into rebuild mode. However, their record is so good already, like 10 games over 500. All they got to do is really win 10 more games. That gets them to about 43 wins. And that's probably a playoff spot, play-in spot. So they won't be able to fully tank. You won't see them in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes anytime soon. But they'll be a fun team to watch, kind of like the 2018 vibes when they had D'Lo, a lot of role players. But the Suns are officially, again, contenders with the Kevin Durant trade. As we move on to another Western Conference team, my Lakers making what seems to be a great trade, getting Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, and D'Angelo Russell, and giving up Westbrook, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Damian Jones. They went to Utah, and then Mike Conley, Nikhil Alexander Walker, and some picks went to Minnesota. And the Lakers did what they've needed to do for about a year now. Trade Russell Westbrook. His contract is gone. And guess what you got in return? You got Malik Beasley, an elite shooter. I think he's top 5 in three-pointers made, 36%. He did struggle in his debut, but I'm not too worried about him. Like he said on Instagram with his hashtag, he got all the misses out of the way in his first game. Jared Vanderbilt is a hustle guy that the Lakers have not had. The Lakers have been old. The Lakers have been a little soft, if you will, with Anthony Davis and his injuries. Obviously, LeBron is not going physical for 15 rebounds like he was in 2013 with Miami. Jared Vanderbilt will do the dirty work. We saw that in his debut against Golden State Warriors in that big win. He's perfect. And then D'Angelo Russell is back. I remember D'Lo was the guy who was like, oh yeah, this guy's going to save our franchise. I remember 10, 11-year-old me was so excited that he was going. And then obviously he had to be shipped out, which was unfortunate after the Nick Young and just the whole scandal and whatever was happening there. But it's good that he's back now. He's more mature. He's a better player. And he's a great third option to have along AD and LeBron and a guy who can create his own shot. As for Westbrook, we haven't heard yet if he's getting a buyout with Utah. I would expect he will, and he'll probably join the Bulls or the Clippers. I know Paul George is recruiting him heavy to join the Clippers. For Utah, I don't know why you give up Jared Vanderbilt, to be honest. I know you're rebuilding, and he's young. He's a great player. He's on a rookie deal. So that's an interesting choice. For Minnesota, I don't know what they're doing. You've replaced D'Lo with Mike Conley. Conley's contract is just brutal. Nikhil Alexander Walker looked good 1 or 2 seasons ago, but he didn't really get minutes anymore. So I'm not really sure what they're doing. I think the Lakers clearly won the trade, which is something I didn't think I necessarily would be able to say when we gave up Westbrook. But this is a great secondary option after they couldn't get Kyrie Irving. And it'll be interesting to see whether this can put the Lakers into the playoffs and perhaps another championship run, barring any major injuries, which we know they've dealt with the past couple seasons. And next, the last blockbuster before we get into more role players that shift some teams' fates. It's Kyrie Irving going to the Mavs along with Markieff Morris for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, first and second round picks. And Kyrie Irving, obviously we know the baggage he comes with. Him and Luka are probably two polar opposite human beings. But clearly Mark Cuban said, you know what, we're going to do this. We need to get Luka help. The fans have been saying he needs help. Everybody in the NBA has been saying he needs a second guy and create his own shot. And they got that. And now they have 2 guys to close out games. You got the leading scorer in the first quarter in Luka and the fourth quarter in Kyrie Irving. So it'll certainly be interesting to see how that goes. They did lose their first game together by 3 to the Kings, but I don't think it's much to be scared about. Obviously, the Kyrie and the KD trade ends the era in Brooklyn. And the Mavs, I don't think they're ready to win a championship yet because they have so much depth and so much defense in that trade. They just extended Dorian Finney-Smith to be what they thought their defensive stopper for the future because we know you need an elite defensive wing in the West. So I think they will make at least second round, obviously. Conference finals run, maybe. It just depends on some things. But it's certainly an interesting deal. And Kyrie may just end up being a rental because who knows where he'll go at the end of the summer. And now, just to go a little bit quicker through some role players. First off, we had Jakob Poeltl going to the Raptors for Kem Birch, a first And 2 second-round picks, Spurs giving up Portal, getting picks, Wembanyama sweepstakes. We know how they roll. The Raptors, for some reason, were buyers and not sellers despite being 10th in the East. Not sure what their plan is. Not sure what Masai Ujiri is cooking up there in the front office, but they decided to get Portal back, and we'll see how that goes. Josh Hart reunited with his fellow Villanova alumni Jalen Brunson in New York. The Knicks gave up Cam Reddish, Ryan Arcidiacono, Svi Mykhailiuk, and a first-round pick to the Blazers. And Josh Hart is a perfect guy that Tom Thibodeau will like. He hustles, he gets rebounds, he plays defense. I think it's a great fit for them. Don't think it flips the Knicks into a contender or anything, but it's a good little deal, especially nice to see Cam Reddish freed after he was rotting on the bench because we know Tom Thibodeau, 9-man rotation, nobody else gets in. If you're not in it, oh well, enjoy the bench. Jay Crowder went to the Bucks for 5 second-round picks. Second-round picks are being just thrown around. I think it was like 20-plus traded. Why not? The Bucks are contenders. They're win now. Jay Crowder, championship experience. He went to the finals with the Heat, the finals with the Suns. He's had some good playoff stretches over his career. Good depth to add with Giannis, and can never have too many shooters around the MVP. As for the Nuggets, they also made a deal. They got Thomas Bryant to back up Nikola Jokic in exchange for Devon Reed. Now, Thomas Bryant requested a trade after he didn't get minutes after AD returned for the Lakers. And I get it. You know, he's young. He's playing pretty well. So to see him get his minutes cut, I'm sure he didn't like that. I don't blame him for requesting the trade. It is what it is. I'm sad to see him go. But the Nuggets, rich get richer. Now, we know they also are getting Reggie Jackson on the buyout market and traded Bones Highland, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm really excited to see what the Nuggets can do this season. The Blazers got Matisse Thybulle in exchange for Jaden McDaniels. Jaden is pretty much a taller, better shooter, maybe even better defender version than Thybulle. This is a good deal for Philly. Whether Doc Rivers will actually play McDaniels is a whole nother thing. But with the Blazers giving up GP2 to the Warriors, Thybulle's a great pickup because we know the Blazers, what's been holding them back from a real championship run with Damian Lillard has been defense, defense, and defense. And now moving on to that aforementioned Bones Highland trade. He's going to the Clippers for 2 second-round picks, a score first PG along with Kawhi and Paul George. If they don't get Russell Westbrook, Bones obviously will be the key point guard for them. We know people have been saying that, they need more of a playmaking point guard next to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. John Wall didn't work out. Bones is definitely more of a scorer, but I still think it'll work because Paul George and Kawhi, at the end of the day, they don't need to be fed by a point guard. They can create their own shots if they're healthy, of course. And we had the Warriors, the defending champions, making some moves. James Wiseman went to the Pistons. Sadiq Bey went to Atlanta. Kevin Knox went to the Blazers. 5 second-round picks are coming Golden State's way, and 5 second-round picks. And those 5 second-round picks, are then being sent to Portland to get Gary Payton II back. But then we found out Gary Payton II has an injury. He didn't pass his physical, so the Warriors had to figure out in the span of 48 hours, are we going to take him and just go through the 3-month rehab? They decided that yes, because he was part of their championship squad last year, it is worth it. He has the chemistry, he has the culture, and they believe he can help them win a championship and repeat. So they decided to do the deal after all this chaos. Hopefully GP2 doesn't have any setbacks in his rehab and he can be ready for the Warriors playoff run because he's fun to see. We saw him guard Ja Morant last playoffs. He'll take whoever's the best guard on the other team and give them trouble on the offensive end. As for the Clippers, they continue to make more deals. They got Eric Gordon. He's coming back to the Clippers. We all remember when he was a star, if you will, back in the day for the Clippers. They sent John Wall, like I said, to the Rockets. John Wall hates Houston. He basically said, their franchise is terrible. I was really sad there, and he got sent there back anyway. It's a business. Luke Kennard went to the Grizzlies. Danny Green went to Houston. He's bought out. He's not going to the Cavs. For the Grizzlies, I love the Luke Kennard pickup because they need shooting. I know Desmond Bane's a sniper, but the rest of the guys, John Morant, inconsistent, Jaren Jackson Jr., it'd be nice if he could hit threes, but he's fouled out half the game most of the time. So Luke Kennard's a big pickup. I know he struggled a bit in his debut today against the Celtics, but I think come playoff time, he'll be huge because it just seems like when he's open, it's a guaranteed bucket. He's shooting nearly like 50% from the three, so it's a great pickup. And we had the Lakers make one last deal that I was very excited about, and that is trading Mo Bamba for Pat Bev. Threw in a couple second-round picks as well. Patrick Beverley already is bought out, but Mo Bamba is the perfect fit along Anthony Davis. You know how I said Jared Vanderbilt made up for AD's lack of hustle, sometimes lack of rebounding, he's injury-prone. Mo Bamba is that shot blocker next to AD that please tell me who is getting through both of those guys. Those are two of the best shot blockers in the game. Mo's length is unreal, and most importantly, he can shoot the ball. AD can chill in the post. Double teams will have to be limited because he'll have 4 shooters around him with Bamba. And as long as Bamba is hitting at least like a 35% rate, I think he's shooting 38 this season, it'll be fine. It'll work out. That is an elite shot blocking duo for the Lakers that will be so key come playoff time when you play teams that are trying to get into the paint and bully Anthony Davis. It's nice to have a sidekick in Mo Bamba along with him. We'll see his debut in a couple of games. He's still serving his suspension from punching Austin Rivers. And lastly, the last notable trade is Josh Richardson going to the Pelicans for Devontae Graham, 4 second-round picks. Josh Richardson, I feel like, is a little bit of an underrated guy. He's a pretty good 3-and-D wing. I was hoping the Lakers would get him throughout the season, but obviously the other deals I'll take. He was on the Celtics, got traded to the Spurs before the Celtics championship run, but now he's out of that rebuild. He's hoping to help the Pels. We know Zion will miss a couple more weeks than expected after the All-Star break, so they have a lot to build on, but I think come playoff time, Richardson will be a key rotational piece for them. They already have, defense specialists in Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, so that's good defense 1 through 3 to throw out there and try to stop some of the elite scorers in the West because there sure are a lot of them. And obviously the Spurs, more picks is all they want as they continue to rebuild. So that recaps an absolutely crazy NBA trade deadline. I think the craziest one we've seen in a couple seasons. Usually, we see some of the stuff in the offseason, but for KD and Kyrie to be traded, Russell Westbrook, all these big names really switched up who's the favorites maybe in the NBA. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with these last 20 games or so until the playoffs, and then we'll see who can win the finals. But yeah, that is all for this week. It's been a big week in sports, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.